Hey, how's it going? It's Grant
And Shelby K.
with the Garden of Eater, and tonight we're going to talk all about water changes, mainly doing water changes for your shrimp tanks. But I do believe there are a lot of things out there that are a lot easier and less worrisome to do water changes on than shrimp. So if you listen to all my tips and tricks for tonight, you should be able to do water changes on just about anything and have success keeping just about anything that way. Besides feeding, water changes is like the most important part of husbandry for just about all aquatic critters. Very few of them do all right with no water changes. It is possible in the right setup with plants and the right ecosystem, but for the most part, the easiest way to take out the pollution in the water, pollutants, and wastewater, and ammonia and nitrogen is to do your water changes. And a lot of people think that doing water changes in a shrimp tank is really difficult to the point where they're scared that they're worried to do them. So I'm here to make it all very simple, and you're going to find out a couple tips and tricks on how to do that a lot easier than you would have thought. Uh, we have 391 tanks currently set up. We were just at Petco today. We bought 6 more tanks. We were at Petco a couple days ago, bought 3 tanks. They really don't have enough 10-gallon tanks for us in stock. We're about to build another 26 10-gallon tank stand. And with all of those tanks, my main job is basically just doing water changes. And if we're able to do water changes on that many aquariums successfully without having issues and troubles, then we must be doing something right. So I'm basically going to lay it all out for you guys, what we do and how we do it. And if maybe I had enough money, I'd do it differently. But for now, we do it all manually. We don't have any automated water change setups. We would do that, again, buy the money for a little $25 float valve with a bracket for every single one of the tanks, and then on top of that, all the piping for all the tubing and the water coming in, the water coming out, and then the space on top of that. So I would need a bigger house. We would need a bigger house, and like there's a lot of things that go into having an automated water change that just it takes away the fact that it's a home and turns it into more of a warehouse. And Shelby's always like, it's a warehouse. You're treating it like a warehouse, and it's not. It's a home. I'm like, it might as well be a warehouse with bunk beds in it, and we can just sleep, and we'll all be fine. But yeah, no, it's a lot of water changes, and we were planning on getting up to 600 aquariums in this household. And all we are doing is basically taking water out of the tanks every 2 weeks and putting water into the tanks. But it's how you do that on the shrimp tank that matters. There's a couple things that you could do to the tank that could mess up your entire colony. But with shrimp, go easy, go slow. Don't create a lot of flow or mess. And the shrimp tend to not have a lot of issues. So let's start it off. Why you want to do water changes in shrimp tanks is basically the shrimp are molting. They're taking in minerals and oxygen and all of this, content to make sure that their shells are replenished as they grow bigger in size. And the easiest way to replace that mineral content into the water is to replace the water with brand new mineral, brand new water changes. And that is also going to keep the nitrogen levels as low as possible. If there's a little bit of nitrogen in the water, that can burn the gills. So you want to make sure that you keep the water as pristine and clean as you possibly can. Yes, plants will take out a lot of those issues and help keep the water pristine and clean. But if you're going for a lot of numbers, you're overfeeding, and you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing, water changes are your best countermeasure to get things back under control. So we recommend that you do water changes at least every 2 weeks. Every week is recommended. You could do them, more frequently than that. If you have one of the small nano tanks that are like 5 gallons or smaller, we recommend doing it like every 4 days if you're doing like 20%. If you're doing it every week, we recommend doing like a 50 to 90% water change on those smaller tanks. This is also going to help with algae. It's going to help with growth rate, baby survival rate, a lot of things. So it's definitely beneficial to do water changes and to stay on top of it, stay consistent, stay inside a schedule or a routine. The shrimp are going to be dependent on you replenishing the water and maintaining these levels so that way they can continue to reproduce, and then you get babies as a benefit of your hard labor. So when you do your water changes, you want to pull water from the bottom of the water column, all of the waste, the nitrogen, ammonia, and everything like that, the hard water particles that haven't broken down into your water column, and those are going to be at the bottom of the tank. They're more heavy and more dense than the cleaner water, which is going to sit on top of the water. The only thing, of course, that's going to be on top of the surface is protein. Protein can float, but for the most part, a lot of the debris and stuff that can cause the protein scum as it builds up and the molecules start to bond together, you can get them before they start to float on the surface and become a problem.
And welcome to the TGOE team, Lake to Land Aquatics. Make sure to email us at thegardenofeater@gmail.com. I'll put that in the chat below. Sorry, slow typing.
Thank you for joining and your support. Make sure you email us at the email that Shelby just did you say
literally
the
2
address
seconds
and
ago.
everything? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So you get your shiny membership sticker and our discount code to our website, tgoeshrimp.com. And
I had a feeling, though, you're part of the club.
And
if you would like us to bring it to the club meeting this Saturday, Mo Devlin is our speaker. I might be wrong, though. Lake to Land, Land to Lakes. I feel like...
No. There's lakes everywhere.
All right, maybe not.
And Fist coming in with the $2 super chat says, "Thank you for my order and the extra shrimp." Okay. Glad you got it, and happy heard it's already doing well. So that's really, we love to hear that.
Yep, glad to hear. And we threw in those extra shrimp because you more than likely purchased them during the hurricane sale. So we greatly appreciate that you guys took advantage of that sale so well.
This is so frustrating.
The storm didn't hit us, but it was good to be prepared. Prepare for the best, or prepare for the worst, hope for the best. And we really lucked out where some others were a lot less fortunate. What's going on there, sweetie?
Well, I got gifted a membership. I don't
know. To our own channel?
Yeah, well, I tried to make sure it won't allow, but I guess it allowed it by accident. So,
email us at thegardenofeater@gmail.com. Send me your address and I'll get you a sticker and a 10% off code to tgoeshrimp.com.
Thank you, Craig. Excuse you. Do not talk over me. Thank you, Craig. Gifted 3 memberships because one obviously failed to me.
So he's still gifted 4 memberships. He's still, supporting us.
To Diego and Andy Carson. So just make sure, even if you're gifted a membership, to email us as well. You do get that discount code. You can now come to members only now, Shelby. Apparently you're having members only.
So we had the hurricane sale, and that did so well. I was going to do a Labor Day sale and mark down some of the shrimp, but I'm kind of looking at all of our shrimp, and I really don't have a lot of shrimp in high numbers. They're high supply right now. So everything's basically buy 10, get 3 free. There are some shrimp still marked down, but we had to save some of the shrimp for the Keystone Clash. So if I mark down everything, we won't have anything to bring to the Keystone or Aquashella or any of the events we plan to go to throughout the year. So we were very lucky, though, that everybody took advantage of the hurricane sale and that nobody was affected in our household.
Is it storming outside? I don't understand why they're at our feet.
I don't know. Shrimp yesterday got stung by a bee or something, but we had to give him some Benadryl because he was swollen at the ears, the eyes. I told Shelby, I was like, Shrimp looks like he's getting way old real fast. And Shelby was like, no, he's swollen. His tail, he must have got stung on the butt or something like that because his feet were swollen, but back to his normal self today. But Thea's like, oh, I'm going to lay right here. But it might be a storm.
Nancy V used her 2-month membership saying, mosaics I got from y'all a few months ago are really showing off now. Beautiful. Ooh, I'd love to hear that. Sometimes those struggle because people don't realize they need really high light, especially outside too. So
they're light deprived for sure.
And Crip
light dependent.
Using his member for 15 months to say, Shelby, you still have 14 months to catch up to me. He's so good. That's great. Anyways, continue.
Does that mean you stopped Crypt Keeper because, like,
no, that's
you wouldn't be catching up to him? You know what I mean? Like, if he was, yeah, you'd just be 14 months behind all the time.
At all times.
All right. So, water changes. Just pull down from the bottom of the aquarium when you do your water changes. I think that's where we left off. That way, you basically optimize your water changes. See Richard's in the chat, and he's got the automated water change systems where it pulls the water off the top of the water column. The only thing I would say to make a system a little bit more efficient would be to find a way to pull it from the bottom, but then you jeopardize like just draining the entire tank. So you need like a fail safe there, and it's all risky business. But that's why we don't do our manual water changes or automated water changes, and we do manual. We take the siphon. We've got a little tiny filter guard that goes on the end of the hose, and it's made out of stainless steel mesh with really tiny holes. It's really rough when you're trying to vacuum up mulm and stuff like that, but it prevents any of the baby shrimp from being siphoned up, and they stay in the tank that way, and we don't use botanicals or anything like that. No leaf litter, and we really try not to overfeed to prevent any of the mulm from building up. One of the big mulm creators, mulm balm, is the cholla wood. We really recommend using like a spider spider wood or Malaysian, the Mopani, the Malaysian wood and stuff like that. That's a lot harder and doesn't break down as fast and create as much issues as the cholla, the softer woods. Definitely stay away from grape wood. That stuff turns real mushy real quick.
Stephen P. Whoop just hit 1 year, member for 12 months. Now our when is our we have special things for our
I think we get them at the Keystone Clash.
Okay.
I should ask Sam about that, but he told me last month this was the month that we would be getting them.
He's been busy, but
yeah, we should be getting that out. I think the wait will be worth it. We'll have 2 prints that are exclusive TGOE prints from Sam, and one of them will be for our members that are been supporting us for as long as Stephen P has, or longer. So
thank you so much. I forget to say thank you over here in another world. Are you going to talk about Sulawesi minerals? Because there is a question about that.
No, I wasn't. But if it's a water change question, I would answer it right now if you want.
Sharkfin said, do you have any videos on how to remineralize water to make it for the shrimps?
I think we might have a video where we set up the Sulawesi and Opaula tank, if Crypt Keeper can bring that one up. It was while my ankle was broken and Shelby did all the work. But I believe the video's there because I did the water change. I remembered mixing the water, and that was all I could do.
It wasn't about Sulawesi, I guess. That's someone else's question that's later. But
just
showing how to remineralize in general. I know we do have the Sulawesi one on that rack video, but I don't know if you actually have a video.
We have to have a video of Sulawesi where I mix the water. I talk about it somewhere.
I know. Goodness gracious. Open those ears. Just said that. I said I don't think you have one of just remineralizing any other water like Caridina.
Okay. I gotcha.
I'm going to log off for the night.
No. I clearly need you here tonight. All right. So when we take the water, or do we have another question?
Did you answer that question?
So basically we have the videos broken down. If you want to know how to remineralize for Neocaridina, everything you need to know about Neocaridina there. I will talk about remineralizing a little bit here, but I don't know if I did it for Sulawesi, and I definitely did it in our Caridina video. I definitely talk about that. What are you laughing about now?
I just said we did it in the video.
Okay. So,
goodness gracious. It was very hot out today.
I just film and I talk a lot, and then she makes the magic happen. So,
Matt said $2 super chat says if Shelby leaves, I leave.
If Shelby leaves, I leave, Matt. That's what happens.
So funny.
No, I'll get into it. We were up late last night. One of our buddies showed up to the house with a bunch of shiners, and
Matt's got his 12-month membership as well.
Just barely made it.
Just to make sure that you know that he's only here for me and not a fan of Grant.
Yeah. So Mark dumped off a lot of the shiners and stuff like that at the house, and then we headed out. But he was here. We went out and had some food, and then at 12:05 in the morning, the rocket re-entered into our atmosphere to land at Cape Canaveral or somewhere in that area that they could pick up the astronauts that were in space. That was skeptical. I posted that video on my Facebook story, and then basically woke up and went collecting and was right in the Florida sun. Was really no shade, no trees or anything out there at all whatsoever where we were collecting. It was a really nice spot. Caught probably 40 Elasoma, if not more. I do believe some jumped out of the tank, out of Shelby's tank, and then out of the net a few times. So we also got a bunch of other darters, killies, and other things like that. And then, we got some ice cream, not Papa Clyde's because Papa Clyde's was closed, so we had a deal for a Twisty treat, but it's all right. It's a 5.6.
Zoltan using the member for 9 months to say, love all your great info. Thank you so much. Even if you repeat it 16 times.
Listen, all right. So let's talk about how we pull the water out of our aquariums. There's a lot of tips and tricks that I've learned over the years that you do not have to use your mouth to get the siphon going anymore.
What? I'm just kidding.
And don't tell Shelby this. Just go back to stop listening. So basically, depending on how deep your tank is and how much you clean your hose or don't care about cleaning your hose, etc., you are able to put most of the hose into the aquarium, get a good loop down, put your thumb on one end of the hose, have the other end out the other way, a good amount below the aquarium, so that way gravity can take effect and the siphon can get going on its own. But hold your thumb on the one end of the hose and then stick it to the bottom and pull out as much of the hose out of the aquarium that you possibly can, and then release your thumb, and that should start the aquarium. It's really hard to do in a 10-gallon tank, but it's like my go-to with 50 gallons and whatnot. If you don't have enough room in the tank, but you already have, say, a bucket with a little bit of water, or a hose or anything like that, you can actually get the hose filled with water and then just stick your finger on one end of the hose, dip it in the tank, have the other end with gravity lower than the tank, and release it, and the water will drain out of the hose, and then we'll pull water out of the aquarium. So our other method is we just hook up the hose into the tank and then fill the hose up with our tap water from the sink or the hose outside. We're able to do this though because the hose that we use for our house is over 75 foot long, and we at least just need to fill it up like 3/4 of the way, and then we just like walk the hose and the water will start pushing out of the hose and then start pulling it out of the aquarium. So this way it prevents you from getting a respiratory illness. There's been quite a few members of our aquarium club that they huffed on the aquarium hose to get it going, and it made them quite sick. They had to go to the doctors and get that all cleared up. So
it can cause respiratory infections.
Yeah, so
that are very hard to get rid of.
You can do it, but just once on a very brand new clean hose, and then after that, just keep the water in the line or something, and that way you're always able to do water changes. I highly recommend getting a water hose as long as possible. It is quite annoying to have that much lying around on the floor all the time. Someone trips over it all the time, but it's just one of those things where it really does make your life a lot easier, because once upon a time, we were lifting 5-gallon buckets, and that was a nightmare.
Fisk asked, I am currently using airline tubing to siphon and want to switch to those steel mesh ones. How well do they hold up to rust?
All right, so the stainless steel ones that you can buy on eBay that are like full stainless steel, I think they rust, but it takes them a while, and they're very cheap. So I would just buy like 3 or 4 of them, and once you see a little bit of rust, throw them away. We use a little bit of electrical tape and throw it on the end to secure it if it doesn't match up to the hose perfectly. We do have some custom-made stainless steel guards that we've been using for many years now that haven't had any rust issues, but these were handmade by Han. I've been kind of like pestering him to make us some that we can start carrying them on the website. However, he's a busy man with the houseplant business now, and I don't even know if he knows where all the materials are. Maybe one day I'll ask him how he made it, where to buy the materials, and we can make out 100 of them and sell them on the website. But it's just one of those things where we don't have the time to do that at the moment. Maybe once we have 600 aquariums going in the house, we'll have time. But at the moment, we're building. It's so much more time to build than to maintain. All right, back to me.
Yeah.
So like I mentioned,
still at you this whole time.
So I mentioned grabbing a long hose so that way you can do your water changes a lot simpler. Other than that, once you get your water change started, you can pull water out of the aquarium as fast as you can. You just got to think, though, with a huge hose and with a large diameter, it is going to pull out water very fast. The shrimp are small. They can't really swim against really strong current, and you are going to pull up a lot. So We use like a 1 inch. You're the one. You work at West Marine. What size hose are you getting for us?
It's not 1 inch.
No.
It's either 3/4.
I think the hose itself is 1 inch, though. The hole inside is not a 1 inch diameter.
It's
so
inner diameter, which is how you measure hose. So.
Yeah, but you don't need to go that big. The tanks drain at a significant enough rate that it pulls out all the waste, and I'm not like sitting there going, "Oh my God!" If I was using airline, it would take me forever to do the water changes. I think maybe it would be cool if I had like 100 really long airlines, and I could just do one in all the 100 tanks, and then rush to pull them all out of the aquariums before they all overdrain. That would be like a really fun skeptical to do one time, but I don't think I want to do that every week. But I would just recommend finding like a 1 inch tube, and not diameter tube, but like full in size. We do the West Marine tubing. It's a marine grade tube. It's a little bit thicker, stronger, and holds up, lasts a lot longer, and it doesn't really kink as easy as the tubing that we get from Home Depot. It's real thin and soft and causes a lot of issues. So I highly recommend getting the marine grade tubing from West Marine.
Oinky, the 7-month membership chat, said the best bamboo shrimp tank mates you've ever had. I think Cory cats go well with them. We don't have bamboo shrimp, but our
You're missing it. Oh, I mean, panda Corys would be great.
Bamboo shrimp.
Yeah, bamboo shrimp.
Yeah.
Panda Corys.
Oh.
But I was thinking
That's
panda
cute.
Loaches.
That would actually be pretty
So you
cute.
got to do something panda. If you don't, then our recommendations mean nothing at this point.
Someone should do a whole bamboo tank with bamboo shrimp and panda
lucky
Corys. Oh, I'm going to have to do that now. I love doing stupid things like that. That's so cute.
Get to it, Shelby.
I know. I'm slacking. I can't ever keep up with enough aquascapes. Sorry.
All right, so I highly recommend getting that tubing. There's a lot of other different kind of like hose methods that you can go out there and use, but when draining the aquariums, those are the ones that we prefer. We use a totally different hose now with filling the water changes back up, but that's later on. Right now we're draining the tanks, so for just preventing babies from getting siphoned up, besides the filter guard that we talked about, you can use pantyhose, you can use an old sock, you can use a sponge that has real small holes to it, so it doesn't suck up any of the babies or anything like that. But you're really going to want to make sure you have something on that hose, because something can happen and a shrimp can get curious, and then the next thing you know, you've got a shrimp in the garden or wherever you're siphoning your water out to.
Have a good night, Dr. Anthony.
Is he home and ready for a box?
Yes.
Is that what you wrote down?
Yep.
All right. We'll make sure we get that out to you more than likely next Monday, Doc, if you're still there. But have a good night. Hope your back's feeling better now that you're in the States. All right. So basically, to make your life easier, the only other thing that I could recommend is getting a plastic clip. You can get a metal clip. One of the, I don't know, you squeeze one end and it opens up at a point. An A-frame clip. I can't remember. Clamp? An A-frame clamp?
Just a clamp.
All right.
They're just clamps.
I swear it's got a name to it. I'm just not thinking of it right now. But we use them a lot for our greenhouse and stuff outside. But if you get the plastic ones, it's not as like sketchy on the glass. I really feel like one of the days, if we use one of the metal ones in the garage, that it's gonna like chip the glass or something like that. So, but there are plastic ones that really grip the hose and the tanks a lot nicer than the metal clamps.
Stephen P said, how many bamboo shrimp can I have in a bowl? Depends on how big the bowl is, but most likely one.
If it's a Stephen P sized bowl, though, the sky's the limit. Throw them all in, but you gotta have flow in a bamboo bowl.
They absolutely need flow because that's how they eat with their little filter feeder hands. They're so cute. Oh my goodness! But you won't do well unless you have a good flow, like a I can't think.
You could do a cool witch's brew tank where you get like a huge cauldron and throw a bunch of bamboo, and then you just every hour make one of the kids go over there and pretend like they're a witch and stir the pot, and then just sprinkle a little bit of like witch dust on it. But really, it's just shrimp envy baby food, powdered edition. All right, so we got the water out of the tank. I highly recommend doing 20 to 30% every week. Or if you're like us and you got too many tanks or too many, too much going on, then you can't get to it but every other week. Then we do 30 to 50%. I like doing that much water changes because the moss, the plants, and the algae stays away, but the plants do really nice. The moss especially, and most of our tanks with most of the varieties of moss, just a golf ball sized portion can fill up half the tank in about 6 months. So that's a big reason why we do such large water changes. The other reason, though, is our shrimp production has just gone way up. We get more babies, they grow faster, they just get to a larger size overall, and in the end, it's worth spending the money on the water, the minerals, and the hard work that goes into it. It takes a lot of time to do all the water changes. It seems like we try to do like 36 tanks every single day, 10 days out of every 2 weeks. And then, the other 2 days we're shipping out orders, or, we do get to collect and, spend some free time like we did today. But it is a lot of water changes throughout most of the weeks. You got something for me?
No.
Okay.
If you want to explain, I don't know if this is pertaining to the joke or if she really didn't understand the thumb thing on how to siphon the hose using your thumbs.
All right. So if you have a hose full of water and you put your thumb on one end, it's kind of like that straw trick when you're a kid. If you fill up a straw with water and then you put your thumb on the top of it, you can go over to the top of Shelby's head and release your thumb, and all of the drink will go on top of her head. Or most people know about the little straw with the paper sleeve, and you smush it and then you put the water drops on it and it grows like a snake. But you're basically doing the same method with the siphon. So if you're able to take the hose, fill it up with water, and then release it in the tank with the bottom of the hose well below the tank so gravity can take hold, you'll be able to create the siphon without actually having to suck on it.
I'm sorry for laughing.
I don't know what you're laughing at. This isn't a funny situation, Shelby.
I was looking at myself on the phone because it's like a second delay, and the side eye I gave you with you explaining this straw with to make the steak. It had nothing to pertain to anything shrimp related.
It's just the methodology that I'm going with here. All right.
She said, "Got it. Thank you."
All right. See,
we should do a video of that to help people that don't want to get chest infection.
If you didn't get the thumb thing before, after I said the straw thing, you got to give it a thumbs up down below, right? So, now doing water changes and taking water out, there has been probably 1,000,000 times where I've drained too much water out of the aquariums and it's gone down to like the bare bones and the shrimp are swimming in little tiny puddles. The next part of the situation of the equation to doing water changes is why, and if you do it properly, that's not really going to matter. It's not going to be that much of a factor. As long as you've done everything right beforehand, you doing 100% water change is not going to kill your shrimp. So now moving forward, there's a couple things that you need to do to make sure that your water is perfectly suited for your aquarium. Really, one thing is going to matter, and it's that the parameters inside the aquarium match the parameters of the new water that you're putting into the aquarium. So if you've done proper care beforehand and you haven't done top offs where you're adding in tap water after tap water after tap water, stacking minerals on top of each other, because water evaporates but minerals are left behind, so your TDS is climbing every time you do a top off. And then once you go to do your water change, you go from 700 TDS back down to like 250, where your water was like at 200 and you did a 50. That's not the right numbers, but it'd be a little higher than that still. So you want to make sure that you're not topping off with tap water, that you top off with RO water. You want to make sure that your tap water or whatever water you're preparing is as close to the water inside the aquarium as possible. So if you're doing water for Neocaridina and your tap water comes out usually at 170 total dissolved solids like ours does, then you know that when you go to do your water changes, you whip out the old TDS pen, you check the tap water real quickly. If it's at 170 or 160 to 180, generally that means that the tap water is basically the exact same that you used the last time, and you're good to add your prime into the system and fill your tank up with the tap water. We don't let our tap water sit overnight before we use it. There are a lot of benefits to filling up a container with the tap water and then degassing it, so that way the chlorine will naturally dissolve and evaporate before the water gets a chance to evaporate, and you don't have to add the prime. But we still recommend that you add the prime into the tank because it does neutralize a lot of the hard minerals and metals, and also neutralizes some of the nitrogen in the tank as well. So prime has a lot of benefits.
So Matt, $2 super chat. Thank you so much. Says Grant, I recommend you rewatch the first 30 minutes. And I think they're talking about all the comments they made while you were talking a very serious situation. Thank you so much.
I'll just get the cliff notes from Shelby later.
No, I said I'm the only one who gets to have that fun. So Shady did ask, how do you put your thumb over the end of the hose when you have a screen on there?
So I don't do that when I have the screen on there. I do it, I get it started, and then I throw the screen on there as fast as I can. Obviously, if you have to tape it up, that's hard. So I really recommend that you get a really long hose and then you just have it running outside or something like that, ready that it can just be dumped into the garden, so you're not wasting water down the drain or something like that. We have a pond outside. All of our water goes into the pond for the koi and turtles, and that's how we replenish the water. But for the most part, I just have as much water in the hose as possible, stick the hose into the tank, and then I walk the hose. And when you walk the hose and you raise the hose higher, it pushes out the water at the lower end, and then it pulls water out the back end out of the aquarium, and it gets it going all over again. It is a little bit tricky. Doesn't always work the way you think it's supposed to sometimes, but it beats having to do the bucket method or just filling up any type of container and then moving it. It's a lot easier just with the long hose. Bottom aquariums suck no matter what, but there's always those sump pumps and what other water pumps that you can add into the hose line, and they can suck out the water for you if you can go that route. They're obviously really noisy, and they do it like kind of the water pulls out a lot faster than I like to sometimes. And it's a lot of back and forth for me, so I like to do the natural gravity method, and I'd rather just re-walk the hose. It works for us.
So fun fact, Higer does have a really great water change pump. My father has purchased it. We did have to cut it. It is super long, but it's really cool. It hooks up to the sink, and it comes with all the fittings to hook it up. I put it into the tank, and you would want clamps or something to hold it on if you're doing this as a one-person job. But you hold it, you fill it with water, and then you turn the lever, and they got little levers on it, and it take it off the sink. You can actually leave it on the sink, but I drain it into the shower. Yes, okay. But it's got levers on it, where the Python doesn't. It's just got the bulb.
Python has levers.
No, it's just got the bulb. We've had it 20 times.
We have not had
a Python.
A little bit better. We've always had the cheap one that we can get from PetSmart. The Python has levers too.
And then that just drains right into the shower, so it works out really well. No sucking or doing anything like that. So.
But you're wasting the water down the sink, right?
Yeah, but it's just because there's nowhere to really.
Yeah, but you can use that to get it started. Once it's started, put your thumb on the end, walk it out into the garden, and use it outside. So
some people don't want to leave their door open for bugs and other things. Heat. Diego said, I would like to know how often you have to change the Sulawesi shrimp tanks, or is it just refill the evaporated water on them?
So we recommended once upon a time doing water changes like twice a year. However, we've upped the water changes. We now do them at least once a month in our aquariums, and we are getting a lot more breeding out of a 10-gallon aquarium than we were doing in a 20 or 40-gallon tank. So I do recommend doing the water changes, but it boils down to prepping the water beforehand, making sure that it matches up with the water parameters that are going into the tank. So I will talk about Sulawesi water changes after Caridina, though. We're doing Neo-Caridina right now. So I will talk about that tonight. You got another one?
Yep. Sterling Aquashop, welcome in, says, when I add new shrimp, should I wait a certain amount of time before doing the first water change, or should I just do it on the normal schedule for which rack they are on?
So what I recommend when you get new shrimp is doing a massive water change the day before or the day that you actually get the shrimp. So you get on a schedule as soon as the shrimp arrive. And basically they're in there for 7 days, and you do your first 10 or 20% water change. I don't recommend doing, a 2-week probation period and then doing a massive 40 to 50% water change. Not all shrimp are going to be able to take that. It's not a lot of stress, but some shrimp haven't always done well. So I kind of will do a 20% water change after 7 days of getting new shrimp, and then I'll wait like 10 days, and then I'll do a 30% water change, and then I'll do my 14 days, and I'll go down to the 40% water changes. So I just kind of ease them into it, but I definitely want to build them into that schedule as fast as possible. And if you're doing water changes every 7 days and you're doing a 20%, that's fine to start doing that after the first week.
Living Dream Aquatic says, so would you use Prime with RODI water?
No, I would just use it with mainly the tap water because, again, my main reason for adding it is the heavy metals that could possibly be in your pipes or your hose or the water treatment center, the water source originally, where an RO unit is going to pull out all of those heavy minerals way before anything else. So you're not going to have an issue with that in RO water. It's just the tap water.
Fisk said, did I hear that right? You don't let the tap water sit overnight. How long should you wait then?
So we don't wait at all. We just drain the tanks, and then we add we add tap water directly into the tanks that we're filling up or the ponds outside, but we add the prime directly into the aquariums. We do have some tanks in the house where it's like not smart to bring a water hose through that part of the house. So we have a trash can that we use for our Sulawesi shrimp that we also use for any tap water that needs to come into the house. So we have a trash can and we fill it up. It's 32 gallons of water. We add enough prime for that 32 gallons, and then I just basically walk it over to the aquarium that we're filling it up to and do it right away. We don't let the prime or tap water run for any amount of time. It's basically instant. As long as you have enough prime in the system, the chlorine or anything like that isn't going to be a problem. The only problem, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to go blow my nose. But the only problem that you could possibly have would be if like you had the hose running outside, or your tap water comes out at a different temperature than what you're aiming for. So say some of your shrimp are inside and the tanks are at 70 degrees, but your tap water is coming in at 80 degrees. You might want to put it into a container and then just let it chill out for a bit so it can cool down to like 75, 73. You can put a frozen water bottle or something like that and help drop the water temperatures a lot cooler. Or reverse if it's in the winter time and your water's coming in at 40 degrees and you got to warm it up before you add it into your aquariums. I'll be back.
Sakana says, do I need to change water even if there's no detectable nitrates and my GH is stable? If you're only checking for nitrates and GH, I would check for everything else and see. If your water perimeter is on point, you don't need to do a water change. But it doesn't hurt to do water changes unless you're adding in different water parameters. Then it could be a problem. I also would like to mention a lot of people do let their tap water sit overnight for other issues other than just temperature as well. Like sometimes lowers the pH, it comes out higher or something. I know that a lot of people do let it sit out. Some people don't have. We are blessed with good tap water. Some people do not have that. So always test your tap water. Don't just add it to a tank and put prime in. It's not always going to work. And some people have well water and don't know it either. And I know I've messed up a couple of times with different well water, and even with cycling for 30 days, there wasn't enough bacteria in the tank and it was making the ammonia go crazy. So it's something to think about when you are starting up a new tank, just to not rush into things.
And just because there isn't any non-detectable levels or anything like that, it's good to get into a routine. Also, doing the water changes, replacing the water, having little shifts in temperature change as you do the water is going to stimulate a little bit of breeding and stuff like that. Definitely during the winter time. It's not quite cold yet, but it'll be to that point in a few months. And a lot of people will think that the shrimp will stop breeding during the winter season. And one of the things that we do to kind of counteract that and prevent any of the winter breeding lull is to do a lot more water changes. And that kind of tricks them into thinking that it's still breeding season. So if you're, doing the no water change method, I'm not saying it doesn't work, but I'm definitely saying that you could be getting more babies and having, more success if you were doing water changes. And it is better to get onto a routine and just stick to it rather than check your parameters and chase those measurements and be worried about it every day. If you stay on a routine and a method, you really don't have to check your levels as much. You kind of can know exactly what it's going to be at, and then you can look for signs that, oh, something's off. All right, let's pull out the test kit, figure out what it is, and then adjust from there. So, got anything else?
Yes. Anaconda asks, what big air pumps are your favorite, least expensive for shrimp racks?
I don't know if that they're necessarily least expensive. I think the Olitas are fairly priced, though. We've been in the game now for a little over 9 years, and I would say that the Olita has been very, very reliable We've had 2 of them go out on us. We've also bought 3 of them used from other people. So it's like to say 2 of them went out on us was those from the other persons. How old were those? I couldn't tell you which one's which. They are, good casing, easily to clean and wipe down. So, after Shelby goes through the house, almost all of them look brand spanking new again. She's found a spot where you can swap out the air filters and make the pumps all new. The bladders can be replaced in case one rips because you didn't have enough pressure or too much pressure on the system. So we recommend Alita. Gemco is another one that if Alita wasn't out there, Gemco, their customer service. At one point, I was looking to buy a better pump outside, and they helped us out to where I didn't need to even buy a new pump. The pump I had was working for us. So if the pump out back ever goes out, I'm definitely going to get a Gemco for out there. But for in the house, for quietness, we're surrounded by 3 air pumps right now, and I don't know if you guys can hear it or not, but...
Well, there's a reason we have this mic. It's because of how loud the bubbles were. Well,
we could before, if you go back to other videos, though, you can hear the bubbles, but you can't hear the air pumps still.
No, you couldn't hear the air pumps. You can only hear bubbles over air pumps, which is great. So it's not like it's an annoyance. Mel asks, what about filterless like LRB for the shrimp babies not being sucked up? Excuse you. Just wondering your take.
So, to each their own. Lucas isn't focused on just breeding shrimp. He does a little bit of everything. He's a master of all trades, or a jack of all trades, not a master. He's a master of a few, I'm sure. But there's a moth in the house.
I know. Yeah. No, I don't know what this, like a stick flying bug. I don't know. But the Madagascar rainbows look like they really want it. They're like, what's that?
So I'm not saying Lucas doesn't have a ton of babies in his tanks and stuff like that, but there's definitely benefits to doing your water changes. I think the shrimp grow up a little bit faster. I think they do produce, maybe if they're not doing water changes, he might get 8 to 10 batches of babies a year, where because I'm doing water changes, I might get 10 to 12 water changes, 10 to 12 batches of babies a year. And then on top of that, my baby survival rate might be a little bit higher. His might be 87%. Mine might be 93% because I'm doing the water changes. Also, Lucas Bretz does a really good job of building up the rock mountains, and the mountains of rock are made out of the limestone, which is going to break down and produce a lot of minerals for the shrimp and stuff like that. There's many different roads and different ways to travel and get to one destination. I just think with the water changes, I can get there a little bit quicker.
Yeah. So just to add to that real quick is the fact that we have had tanks where there's not as much water changes as the other ones. And we have noticed a huge improvement on baby survival rate on those ones. And I'm not saying that's not filterless, but as you can tell, water changes are very important. So if you are to do something like filterless tanks, you have to remember that you have to do your water changes. You can't skip out on them like you can with a filter tank, because
Lucas does no water changes and no filters. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's to each their own. But Lucas knows what he's doing.
You have to have a perfectly cycled tank too.
He knows how not to overfeed. He knows how to properly stock the tanks. He knows how high and what thickness to set the substrates at and stuff like that. I just think it's the room for error is a lot higher when you're not doing water changes. When you're doing the water changes, you can make mistakes. It's a little bit more lenient, and you're not going to have the high risk of a crash or something like that moving around as a possibility. I mean, it's always a possibility.
Technically, our Opa-Ula didn't have a filter for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, but they're Opa-Ula. They're not Caridina, and like the Neocaridina are fine, and like some of the ponds outside with no filters, but they're getting a significant amount of oxygen from the plants, the rain and stuff like that. There's water movement and reoxygenation because of that.
So Sterling Aquashop with the $4.99 super chat. Thank you so much. Says my tap KH is 9 is higher than GH 8. Is that an issue? I've been mixing with RO, then remineralizing from there to get back to 200 TDS and then get the GH up.
So it's not really an issue, but it could be, because for the most of the time speaking, when you have a higher KH than GH, it means you have a water softener going on, but it's really not that much higher. So there is a possibility that your test kit is just slightly off. You got to take those with like a grain of salt. They can be 20 to 40% off in accuracy. So you could have, a little bit too high of a reading on your KH and too low of a reading on your GH, where really you have a 9 GH and an 8 KH. That's why sometimes it's good to have two test kits. That definitely, when testing your tap water, to try and figure out what you have. Having the 8 GH alone, though, you should be all right with your tap water for neocaridine.
KJ says, Father Fish says, do not clean tanks. What's up with that? I also think this goes back to the question earlier that you would have to be experienced to do something like that and be able to set up a tank properly. I know this is like one of those biggest debates. I mean, everyone has luck doing other things. I mean, I can say that I haven't had luck with betta fish and shrimp, but there are people out there that have had successful tanks with betta and shrimp in the tank. So it's all about how someone's water is, how they maintenance, how they take care of things, what they put in that tank, because obviously an Oscar in a tank, it's just not going to happen. You're not going to have a pretty tank. It's just...
So with Father Fish,
it'd be crazy.
If you're listening to the Father Fish, it's all about the Father Fish method as a whole. Go down to the lake or the ditch that's near your house. You fill up your tank with a thick layer of substrate. I think it's 3 to 5 inches. And then on top of that, you're getting leaf litter, you're getting sticks, but you're also getting all of that biodiversity that's in the water. You're getting the dragonfly nymphs, you're getting beetles, you're getting scuds, you're getting little tiny seed shrimp and other little microorganisms, but you're also getting planaria and hydra and a lot of things that you most certainly do not want in your shrimp tanks. They're not really that big of an issue in your fish tanks. Nobody wants dragonfly nymphs. So I don't know how he suggests the working around that. I watched some of Father Fish's videos, but I haven't ever seen him address dragonfly nymphs, because those will not only eat shrimp, but they devour fish as well. So
did you know we could eat those?
I'm not eating them.
It's gross. They eat them live
I'll watch
on
you
salads.
Thanks for volunteering.
Gross.
With Rico.
Ooh.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Don't mention that.
It's gonna happen
Goodness.
now. So, but with that method, he also doesn't do water changes. He doesn't want to break that balance. How else are you going to recreate that exact perfect water parameters without going into the ditch and grabbing the water and everything like that? So if you're going to be doing the Father Fish method and you build up everything, it's that method and you stick to it. But that's not a method that I've ever tried, mainly because we're doing shrimp, and I don't want half of the stuff that can come out of our stream in our shrimp tank. Mainly only because half of it's good plants, but the other half is all fish and microorganisms that I don't want in a shrimp tank. So that's not our method.
Parasites. A lot of wild shrimp have parasites, so there's got to be something in the water, obviously, causing those parasites all the time. I mean, how many ghost shrimp do we catch with parasites? Or crayfish too. Ooh, it's gross. We don't want that in the aquarium hobby. No one wants to deal with that.
But I also agree with Father Fish on the shrimp tanks. Do not siphon the substrate.
Nope.
Do not clean the sand. Don't clean the gravel in a shrimp tank, because that is 100% going to cause issues in the shrimp tank. And I'll get to that a little bit later. But
it's time.
How you doing?
how's it
How are
going,
you?
man?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right. You looking a little dark this week. You need to get yourself a ring light in front of you.
Yeah, I had one, and for some reason it keeps turning off after like a couple seconds of being on. I think it's shorted out, so I've got to go buy another one.
Oh man, that's a bummer.
Yep.
So I can still hear you though. That still works. So hit me with your
All right.
question, man.
Okay, so if we get terribly off track with our water changes and our water hardness slips way up too high, is it better to do all of the correction in one day, or kind of spread it out over a week or a month or a couple months? Or
So basically what I recommend is don't try and fix your problem. Basically jump into the situation and start doing, your water changes every 7 days, and just do your 20% water changes, because what you're basically going to be doing is every single time you're going to be adjusting those levels and getting them back. So if your shrimp are just fine, and I've seen shrimp go up to 1,000 total dissolved solids. I had a buddy, got a boat. He was already a full-time job as a vet tech, and just got way too busy with things. Never had a lid on his aquarium, and his shrimp dropped all the way down the water level to about 1 inch in the aquarium before I got him. And I got the aquarium, and what else can you do but like add on water? But you don't want to add pure RO water. So every day I would just take a cup of 150 total dissolved solid water and just slowly fill the tank back up. Once it reached back up to its original level, it was still a good 500 total dissolved solids. And then from there, I just did my 20% water changes at 150, and eventually got back down to about 160. And at 160, that's still good enough for the shrimp at an optimal level.
okay, so being a little too hard for a little longer is better than changing it all at once.
Yeah, if the shrimp are fine and not having any issues, then yeah. If your shrimp, however, are having molting problems and there's signs of hunchback or the bring of death, and you're having noticeable deaths already, then yeah, maybe you might want to do a 50% water change at your normal TDS to try and bring it down. And that alone right there is going to help solve the problem. I don't know how high the total dissolved solids can possibly get, but in order for that to happen, you have to be topping off with tap water, and then like maybe adding fertilizers and stuff like that. But like, who's adding fertilizers and not doing water changes?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks.
All right. See you later, guys.
Have a good one.
Yep.
So that was the Timothy Crypt Keeper question of the bi-weekly. But we do have next week where we pick out one of the best comments from the past 2 weeks. And I do not have a comment that is like sitting with me that I can really pull out as like that's a winner this week. So it's still up for grabs. The winner gets a Sam Scales print, and we'll be picking that out and announcing that next week. So your entries, you can comment at any video that we've posted in the past on our YouTube channel.
Zoltan said, what do you use to lower the pH in the tap?
All right, so with Caridina shrimp, we don't use anything to lower the tap water or anything like that. For Neocaridina,
Other than the aqua soil. You have to make sure that's clear.
Yeah, I'm sorry. For the tap water, I don't know why you would be trying to lower your pH. If you're using Neocaridina and tap water, then your pH out of the tap is going to be just fine for them, unless it was coming out at like 10 or something like that. But that's like unheard of. For Caridina, you have to use RO water. You have to have 0 kH in the water, and then the aqua soil is what is going to lower the pH. You got another one for me?
No, I thought you were going to take a little bit longer to answer that one.
Sorry.
Oh, there was here for the comments. Is a shrimp tank is the only tank I don't touch. I just top off with water. Eventually, you do want to do a water change. Don't just keep topping off, because you do want to remove some of that, because it will just start stacking on each other. Evaporation, you'll still have all those minerals. So once in a while, you do. You can get away with shrimp tanks a little bit longer than you would a fish tank, but you still want to do a water change.
But like the Lucas Brett's method, he doesn't. And at the same time, though, the Lucas Brett's method, he does do water changes because he sells a lot out of his tanks. So when he takes the water
Grady
out,
said he's heard Lucas talk about he advocates for water changes. But you still have to have an oxygen source going in the tank, and just like the plants and stuff that he puts in the tank, you have to have plants for oxygen. It's just, you can't just have filterless and just substrate. Like, you're not going to do well. It's not going to be successful. You still have to have oxygen in the water.
And you could be good for a year, 2 years, but eventually you might have a problem that could have been prevented from just simply doing some water changes. And like I mentioned, you might be getting like 80% of the babies and outcome that you could have had if you were just doing water changes. And honestly, the price of shrimp babies is a lot more than the cost of water, minerals, and prime. So I definitely recommend doing water changes.
Their tap water comes out of 1,000 TDS. That's insane. You got a lot of stuff in that water.
So,
a lot of different minerals.
The highest tap water I've seen in Florida is at the Florida State Fair, and it was at 750. So not far from 1,000, but yeah, at 1,000, I'm sure Neos would still be all right in that. No problem. Anything else?
For now, yeah.
All right. So, the only other thing with filling up Neocaridina tanks, if you're using tap water, you've got to make sure that you don't flow the water into the tank at a speed that it's going to start messing with the substrate. You don't want one of those little craters where it looks like a moon face, where you've got the water that just made a little sphere, reverse sphere, into the substrate, pushing out all that mulm and all the debris that's been underneath the water underneath the water column in the substrate. So now it's in the water column, and it's going to cause bacteria, or can possibly cause bacterial issues and other fungal issues with the shrimp. So it's best to just avoid it, and we fill up the aquariums as fast as we possibly can without moving the substrate around. Of course, the more you drain the tanks, the slower you got to fill it up. But once the water gets up a little higher, you can turn up the water a little bit faster. Now, you're able to do that as long as the water parameters match. Temperature, the total dissolved solids, the GH, the KH, as long as they're within like 10% of one another's ratings, then you're good to send it into the aquarium, and you're not going to have any shock or stress to the shrimp. Anything?
Mm-hmm. No.
All right.
Just rating people's TDS.
So now, if you want to mix waters with the RO water and the Neocaridina shrimp, and you're going with a GHKH, we do recommend that if you're using salts at all, to mix the salts the night beforehand. That way they fully dissolve into the water. This doesn't matter if you're using the Neo salts, the Caridina, or Sulawesi. We all recommend running them at least overnight. A full 24 hours would be more than beneficial. Anything more than that, I don't think is really needed. But doing this allows that you're going to ensure that the water doesn't shift overnight, because we have added water from minerals that were mixed an hour beforehand, and there was a shift up to 10 to 20 total dissolved solids one way or another. So it is beneficial to mix them the night beforehand.
It's crazy. It says with an RODI water, it gets down to 25 TDS, never lower, and I got 6 stages. That's insane.
So
from 1,000, at least it gets that low.
I would definitely invest in another 2 stages then, and you can definitely get it all out of there. That's basically what it is. Is like, I think with a 4-stage will take out 90% of the water, and then if you have 1,000 total dissolved solids, you got to think that you're taking out 900, so you're left with 100 total dissolved solids. You almost need another 5-stage or 4-stage to take out the 90% to get down to 10 total dissolved solids. So yeah, you might even be beneficial in running 2 RO units back to back and just taking out that last 25. If you're looking to do Caridina shrimp, if you're looking to do Neocaridina, that 25 TDS probably isn't really going to do any difference for you.
Mimic said, man, I'm used to y'all being done with the main subject by the 1 hour mark and moving on to general questions. Really didn't expect water changes to take up so much time. You'd be surprised. Water changes to us are really important and really do well for our business. And, there's a lot to talk about with water changes and, what?
Now you know how much time water change takes up of my time.
That's literally Grant's life. We could have just, Grant equals water changes. I do too. It takes a full day for me to do all the water changes. I'm a little bit more particular in the garage for my fish, but it's very important. My fish would not do well if I did not do water changes, and there's people that do well without it, but I don't personally see me doing successful without losing fish in the long haul of trying to do and switch to something like that.
I messed up. Go all the way back an hour ago. I was supposed to tell you guys before we do water changes, do all the maintenance inside the aquarium first.
How dare you mess up?
I'm sorry. That should have been like the very first thing. I wrote it down, totally just ignored it. So basically, before I replace the water, Shelby goes ahead of me and cleans out the sponges and goes through and scrapes the fronts of the aquariums, pulls out any algae, any debris like old leaves, dying leaves, and stuff like that would otherwise break down in the aquarium and make the aquarium messier. So doing that beforehand is going to put a lot of debris into the water column, and then I come behind her and then stick the hose into the tank, pull out all of that debris, and then put in clean water. And that is really how to maximize your water change. And that really is why we're the perfect team and get so much done and think that we can handle 600 water changes and not need to do it automatically. So that was a key opponent, and I don't know how.
Look at each other.
No, I'm gonna watch you go through and scrape everything while I just flip a switch. Ka-ching. You gotta figure out how to get your automated. You gotta wait for your Tesla robot, which want it as soon as you can get it, just so you're aware. Another reason why we don't have automated water change system throughout the house is because in like a year and a half, we could probably get a Tesla robot while we're sleeping to do all the maintenance in the aquariums for us. They won't need to see the front of the tank. They will just perfectly scrape the front of every tank and then sanitize so no cross-contamination, and then drain and then fill. And it's going to be all silent while we're sleeping. and we'll wake up and it'll all just be done. And we'll just be like, I want to work in this tank today.
Yep, and then they'll rebel just like the robots in Rick and Morty. So for the comments is, I think when it comes to water changes, it's always a good topic. So much information. I remember I killed a whole tank in the beginning days, moving substances around. I just didn't know. You're talking to someone who didn't know for sure in the beginning. Sometimes fish will surprise you and survive. Like I said, everyone has their way of doing tanks. I had at one time just been able to rinse my entire tank out with Dawn soap, put all the gravel back in, and throw my Oscar back into the tank, and it would survive, and it would do well, and it survived forever until I accidentally dropped it on the floor. But I mean, people can have things survive for a long time and be doing it the wrong way, very badly wrong way. So it's nice to be able to get information so it doesn't happen in the long run. Like, I couldn't imagine doing that to a tank. Like, could you imagine aqua soil?
Doing it to aqua soil is exactly what I was
It would just like deteriorate, and I'd be like, what's going on? What's wrong with it?
Muddy
and then
soil.
kill all my shrimp because it's just not educate. I was in the middle of nowhere. I had no one to educate me on what I was doing, and I just thought you needed the cleanest possible tank ever. But the Dawn commercials came out that they were using it on animals, so just like a lot of people got that stigma that Dawn was safe for animals. I don't know.
But I do think that water changes is a good topic, and it's a topic that we could come back to. Or maybe one night I don't follow my sheet and I just talk to people about their water change method, how they do it, and maybe I can rate people's water change schedule or method, and 1 to 10 instead of ice cream.
Yeah, see, and I've always I try to push the limits on what we can do for shrimp, and I think that sometimes, especially in some of these aqua soil tanks, that the balance is a really good key. So I don't believe sometimes the water changes being as much as frequently, but like Grant has a view and has proved me wrong on that for sure, that the frequent water changes did produce more babies than the other tanks. So it's always something. People always, you want to try new things. It's fine.
Can I just comment on your energy? Where did this come from? You were
done. I am done.
Done. 5 minutes before the stream, she was in bed, not ready at all. And I'm like, "Are you gonna get ready? Like, are you helping me tonight?"
Questionable.
Like,
that was like, my exact words.
I was like, "No, I need you to come out there. You totally stole like all my energy. I don't know. Keep it up because one of us needs to pep up the audience."
I'm in that between stage where like you're extremely exhausted, but you get that like last little win where you're like, all right, I'm scaring myself now. I should probably get some sleep. But Syra Aquatics, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. I feel like I always will till I hear it in person.
Is that a capybara? A turtle.
What's
a capybara from here? Turtle when you get up close. It's a good icon.
It says, hey, I can't afford the Brightwell substrate for Caridina right now. Should I just wait to start the tank, or is there a cheaper alternative substrate to try keeping Caridina?
So I think the larger bags of Brightwell substrate cost $80. There are smaller bags for around $40 that you could try out for a 10-gallon tank. There are other substrates on the market that are like $30, but like honestly, I would just save my money and buy a smaller bag of Brightwell for around $40 to $50 than buying something else, because the Brightwell, you really do get the most bang for your buck, unless you can get like Tropica, maybe Owasi, UNS, or something local where you're getting an 8 or 9 liter bag and not having to spend the shipping cost. Then you would be more than fine using one of those substrates, and you might get a good amount of longevity out of those substrates as well. I was looking today at Fluval substrate, though. They're $54 a bag at Petco. So it's like, I think for Brightwell's price point, it is very affordable. And I don't think there's a cheaper alternative.
Brandon said, should I have a net for each of my tanks?
What do you think, Shelby?
I mean,
you got all the energy.
To me, it is easier to have, just in case something does go wrong in one tank, instead of worrying about the next tank and you have to use that net for it, it is much better to have them all. Not saying you couldn't sterilize them, like a lot of these big companies, they have little boxes that they sterilize their nets in. But if you can afford a net for each tank, absolutely would say that's a great way to go, because you never know what's going to happen. I've had some algae in some tanks, like cyanobacteria. It spreads so easily and it spores like crazy, so using that net to another tank, you'd have that problem in that tank, and then you're going to have to treat that tank too.
Or duckweed, or a lot of things can go from one tank to another.
I'm the worst with duckweed.
One of the things I would like to do when we get back from the Keystone Clash is buy another 100 nets, because we're getting to the point where there are a couple tanks that are sharing nets right now. And I don't mind if like 2 tanks share nets, especially if like this is a high grade Fancy Tiger tank and this is the medium grade Fancy Tiger tank. I'm all for sharing that, because generally I do the water changes. I'm not cleaning between tanks and stuff like that. So I don't mind doing that. But I'd never go from one of my shrimp tanks to one of Shelby's fish tanks and then back to my shrimp tank. But I'll go from shrimp to fish, no problem.
Stay out of my fish tanks. Madaka Madness, welcome in. It says, best overall Caradina shrimp food.
The best overall, my absolute favorite, is going to be the Shrimp Envy Complete. But I highly recommend getting a good mix. My next favorite is going to be the Mineral Junkie from Glass Garden. And then I would love the Shrimp King line of foods, but the protein.
Can you find those?
I mean, we can get them off of Amazon, but the problem is like I can buy them off of Amazon for like as cheap as I can buy them to resell them. So I might as well just tell you guys, like, the Shrimp King foods are great. Just buy them off of Amazon.
I totally agree with that statement. Fisk said, I can't remember exactly who, but I believe it was Dean with Aquarium Co-op that had a tank sitting around mostly empty for almost a year before realizing there was still fish in it. I could believe that 100%, especially like Killi's fish. Them things can live in like a muck tank for probably like 2 years and still be alive. They live longer than people think they do.
I've heard some shipping stories where fish have survived in bags for a ridiculous amount of time as well. And it's just like, you never know though. Some of them are a week in the bag. Some of them are a year in the bag. It's crazy.
Sorry, I had to read this comment because I love it. Shady says, my cheeks are always sore Monday night after I go to bed from smiling for 2 hours watching you two. It's wonderful to see how you both care about each other. That made my night.
Where are you getting that from, though?
Stop it! He somewhat cares. Welcome in, Sam Scales.
Misleading people.
I'm only going to go cry now. Says, yo, Spring Hill fam. Welcome in, Sam.
How's it going? Sam, maybe you can answer this for us. When will we be getting these prints? Is it at the Keystone Clash? Was it this month? I can't remember exactly. So.
He said LRB does not agree with this water change episode. Now we gotta have a whole water change. That's what we need to do. If we ever go over to Lucas's, we'll have a live stream about water changes and both sides.
Water change
debate. Love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Hopefully he's up for that. Sterling said Shelby's a pro now, can turn the switch on and off. It's gonna be right off when I get out of here. Some nights are great. I enjoy the chat a lot, so that gets me pumped up when I see a lot of people.
I guess the first 30 minutes really pepped her up, huh, Matt?
You gotta watch it. It's funny. Welcome in, Kyle G. Thank you so much, Sam. I'm surprised it looks nice because we have been collecting all day, and I was like, I am not.
That's why I was like, are you getting ready? Like, usually she takes a shower or does something for 30 minutes with her hair before the stream. And it was 5 minutes, and she's still lying in bed watching or making her TikTok or
making my TikTok, and then Instagram decided that it didn't like me anymore.
How did we leave this on all night?
I don't know.
And
it's
just
distracting me now. No, I've been watching it like 10 times now. Easy View Rider said, "What was Grant about to say about the protein content with the Shrimp King food?"
The shrimp food. The Shrimp King food. They have a protein line. It's just a protein food out of the shrimp food line, and it's one of my favorite all-time foods. So I place it third. Shrimp Envy Complete, Mineral Junkie, Protein Shrimp King.
Thank you, Matt. So this, but Diego says LRB is actually finishing a water change system now, though, for his babies. Yeah, so babies for sure.
But like, if you're just breeding shrimp in one tank, the fry would be benefiting from doing the water changes, just like fish fry would be. So
this will actually work out perfect because there's a lot of our members that have been with us for a year at the Keystone Clash. So that is when we will have the limited edition prints for our members that have been members with us for 12 months.
And then you're also going to give me Benny's prints too, right? And I'll just pay you for those. I mean, Benny can get the money for them, but I don't want to have to go to Benny for them. I want the prints, though. Benny, back to me. Back to the Caradina water changes. We haven't even got the Sulawesi yet. So pretty much Caradina, there is a liquid mineral that you can use and mix up with the water and make minerals in a pinch if you had to a lot faster. The liquid minerals do cost a lot more per gallon, or however you want to base off the prices and whatever increment. But the most bang for your buck and the best mineral on the market that I have found in the 9 years of shrimp keeping, and I've used everything from MK to Shrimp Daddy minerals, and I was like chasing that dragon trying to find like the best, because in the beginning I used the cheapest, and that was the Shrimp King. I'm sorry, the salty shrimp. And the salty shrimp was the most bang for its buck, and I thought for sure there's got to be something out there that's better. Everything's a little bit more money, but after trying out everything, I was not getting the same results that I was getting with the salty shrimp. I went back to using nothing but salty shrimp, and before I knew it, I was thinking about doing shrimp keeping full time and just breeding and not having to import to try and meet the demand and stuff like that. So I would definitely recommend the salty shrimps. If you're able to prep the water the night beforehand, just simply put the water in a bucket and mix it a couple times with a spoon, and then come back to it right before you go to bed. Mix it again in the morning, and then, one more time before you add it into the tank. And that should make sure that the minerals have completely dissolved. The other easier method would just be getting a good old simple water pump, throwing it into the bucket, or we use trash cans. We've really evolved from buckets to trash cans, from 1 to 5, and now we even have a standing water tank that holds 250 gallons of RO water, and we're able to mix up our salts the night beforehand in all 5 of the trash cans, so that way the next day I have 150 gallons of ready water to be, if you're taking out water from Jaden's room, that's generally enough water to do one of his racks, and then he's just got a little tiny rack. So if we just add one more trash can to the system, we can prep enough water to do his whole room, and then half of the 110-gallon rack as well. So we get that done in 2 days. One more trash can, right, Shelby?
No, stop with the trash cans. It's terrible. Richard said, they were joking for the first 30 minutes, obviously, and we were talking about certain things that we use for water changes. And you've heard the jokes. We make the jokes every single day. It's just 30 minutes of non-stop jokes. But now it's even worse. So Benny Tay is going to have his own limited edition print international collection. I mean, I'm pretty sure you can tell Benny, ask Benny Tay, and he'd let us sell those too.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. I just want it for myself. I don't want it to sell it.
Oh.
Yeah.
And they don't think that you read because you never read chat. So they
I
were
haven't
saying
once ever read
there's
chat.
no pictures in it. Like a kid that doesn't want to read, there's no pictures.
No, it's just that it's 2 hours of chat, and that's 2 hours of me reading, and I don't have the time for that. And I rely on like Cryptkeeper or Shelby to relay that information. And maybe I need to throw somebody else some free shrimp to like give me some like heads up of chat. If you two are letting me down here. See how it is.
Brandon said, "I leave an air stone in overnight to oxygenate the water. I'm not sure if it actually makes a difference though." Thoughts?
I'm sure it does, but like honestly, the actual motion of the water hitting the surface of the other water in the tank, you're oxygenating the water there. I'm sure it helps, and the other thing is also helping mix up the minerals as well. So it definitely has its benefits. I just don't do it myself, and it's not something I think I'll be doing in the future.
He said he would give you a special painting. And he said, "You're glowing today, guys. Love to see it."
Who said that?
Sam.
Oh, that's that natural Florida sun that you're missing.
You coming back yet?
I think he'll be coming down for most of the month. Most of the month next month. So.
Welcome in, Daddy. Oh, so sorry. Crashing real fast.
Right.
Living Dream said, "What size trash cans do you use?"
We had the 32-gallon Brute trash cans. I highly recommend the Brute trash cans. I don't think they're food grade. However, it is what almost the entire industry, the pet industry, recommends, from reptiles to aquatics. It is what we've been using since the very beginning. And I've never had any issues where I'm like, gotta get rid of these trash cans. It's the problem. We also have one 54-gallon trash can. And what I need to do is replace all 4 of the 32-gallon trash cans with 54-gallon trash cans instead of adding trash cans. And that would give me a lot more water as well. So,
They do suck for shrimp, though.
Yeah, they do. But
they're a little heavy.
They make little better gates to block shrimp out from getting into places.
You have level floors and not groovy tile floors. You're good.
So as long as you mix the Caridina water parameters to the exact same total dissolved solids every time, you keep a lid on the aquarium and you don't top off with mineralized water, then every time you do your water changes, they should always match up. And that is the way you can do your water changes without stressing out the shrimp. Of course, if you have no lid on the aquarium because it's an aquascape tank or something like that, make sure you're topping off with RO water with as low TDS as humanly possible. And then all of your water parameters should be matching up. We don't really worry about the pH of the water too much because once the water is added into the aquarium, it is then mixing with the other water as well as being exposed to the aqua soil, and that pH will be controlled by the aqua soil itself. All right, now Sulawesi. Sulawesi is a scary one to be mixing and doing the water changes. There is a 7.5 mineral that you can use that doesn't turn the water into milk. However, I've never used it. I've seen some people have success with it, but they're not like really people that are breeding them for a living or in high numbers or anything like that. Since the very beginning, we've been using Sulawesi salty shrimp in the 8.5 variety, which just simply is referring to the pH, where the 7.5 buffers to 7.5 pH. The 8.5 should buffer to 8.5 pH, but we get right around 8.2, so right anywhere from 8 to 8.5 pH, I think just gets a little bit better baby survival rate, and overall is easier to take care of whatever new Sulawesi shrimp that you get. So with the 8.5 mix, though, it turns to milk. On the directions, it says that you should dissolve it in CO2. We are a CO2 free household. There's no CO2 in this household except for what comes out of our lungs and the dog's lungs. But it might be coming sooner than later even. But for the most part, I will not be using it to gas the Sulawesi minerals to try and get them to fully dissolve in the water. You can use a pump. The pump that we use is a well overpowered Siche pump, and it really does get the water temperature into the 80s, very close temperature to what the Sulawesis already are. So we don't use a heater in the water to get the temperature to what the tanks are. If we weren't using such a strong pump, I would absolutely recommend using a heater so that way the water parameters match up as close as possible. But mix them the night beforehand, and then the next day you're going to have a trash can that looks like milk. Your daughter's going to come up and ask you what you're doing, what's going on here, why does it look like this? Even though you do it once a month, she still goes and asks, why does it look like this? And then you add it to the aquariums, and then the aquariums are going to look like milk for 2 to 3 days as well. But the shrimp don't stress out. They don't mind it. They just keep doing their thing. There is a good possibility that overnight the tank can clear up and the cloudiness will go away. But there does seem to be like this layer of dust on the sponge filters, the rocks, the substrate, everything. But as the snails, the shrimp kind of graze over everything, all of that gets dissolved and broken into the substrate, and it works. I don't know why it has to look like milk, but the shrimp are fine in milk, I guess, and it just does all right.
Cryptiver said, would it dissolve easier if you heated it up separate from the tank?
So that's what we're basically doing with the pump in the trash can. We always mix the water and then heat it back up to the temperature, and that pump is basically 2,500 gallon per hour rated pump, and it's a tiny 30 gallon trash can. So just the flow valve, the adjuster valve that I have to have on it reduces the flow. The back pressure on the pump heats up the water and warms up the minerals already. So it definitely helps having the warmer water dissolve the minerals. It just doesn't completely dissolve. It just keeps staying milky no matter how many days you let it run. Back to you. No, nothing. That's basically it, guys. I mean, I do know I made it an hour and 38 minutes and stayed on top of tonight's main chat, but we can go back to our, you guys got any questions? We did mention we picked up 6 aquariums today. They only had 2 10 gallons. We needed 20. How rude of them to only supply 2. Like, come on, Petco, right? That's how it works in the retail market. It's always their fault.
Yeah.
All right. Yes. Shelby works in retail, so she can say that.
I'm zoning out already. It went from like super energetic to just zoning out.
But
Easy.
What they did have was 5-gallon tanks and 2.5-gallon tanks, and we don't have any of those. Like, we've never had a Petco 5 or 2.5-gallon tank. So we put tanks inside tanks, and then inside tanks, and then we brought those home. So we got 6 tanks home today. Hopefully they have more tanks by the end of this sale, or else we're going to have to go hit 4 Petco's in a row and just hope that Lucas Bretz doesn't beat us to it.
Right.
Now that he lives in our same state, seems like all the Petco's are low in demand, low in supply of aquariums for some reason.
Yeah,
I just
put 2 aquarium hoarders in
understand why.
one state. Brandon did say maybe boil some water and get it dissolved before mixing it in the other
We've
water.
tried that. It just makes warm milk. I'm not even lying. Like we've done it, and it turns it into milk. We've done everything you could possibly think of, but CO2. So
Easy V Rider said, how long is too long for RO to sit before using it? Sometimes I make large amounts of RO water and don't use it for like a few weeks. I store it in a brute trash can with a lid.
So I believe it's good indefinitely. However, my nose does not think so. So if we had the trash cans with lids on them, and for whatever reason, you smell some funk underneath the lid. No light, and no way for the air to escape or anything like that. It just didn't have a good.
Always storm mildew, and you would be more likely to not have mildew if you had light. But just like you do that science project in like 5th grade, you put a piece of bread in a jar.
There's nothing though for it to grow on, so I'm just like, I don't know what proteins it's got to live off of, but it just doesn't smell right. So I would just like maybe get an aerator or a pump or something like that you could run in it the night before you use it. But basically, you're not losing minerals. You're not losing, or there isn't a buildup of waste or anything in the water. So it should be good indefinitely. It just smells weird, and I can't get over it. So I really like, before we go on vacation, I try to empty out the RO unit, and then I try to stay on top of it so that the water gets replaced every day.
Brandon said, also in my experience, you can't make an established tank a Sulawesi tank. The plants will melt and the bacteria will die. Yes, most plants will not survive in Sulawesi tanks. We've only gotten a couple of plants and not really thrive, but they survive.
You know what I want to try though? Jungle Val.
We'll try. We've been trying like every plant. None of them have been successful. We've done Java ferns. They lasted a long time, don't get me wrong, but they did not grow. They did not reproduce.
Or the rabbit snails would eat them.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. I think the benefit of rabbit snails is way higher than the benefit of plants in a Sulawesi tank. Only a Sulawesi tank. Besides that, I would like plants in Neocaridina, Caridina tanks. I love some acroalgae and some Opaula tanks. So,
Dur asked, do top-offs with RO necessarily require remineralizing, since the salts and minerals generally shouldn't be reduced by evaporation?
100% never remineralize the water when you top off. Top off should be with only RO water, if that's how you're taking care of your tanks. We use lids, and then you never have to top off the aquariums. There is like a little tiny bit of seepage, but by the time we get to the water change, the amount of difference in the TDS isn't even really noticeable. So you just do that water change alone, it takes care of the problem.
Yep. They need to send them our way, Sam. And Richard just said, I can hit the pectos down here for you. Lady Diane said, note to Jaden, Muddy Toy is still coming. I've been in bed with a bad hip and as soon as I can drive, I'll send it.
I got to look into that lychee nectar too. So if there's room in the box and you have a bottle, just lay it around. I'll take it.
Well, I guess Lucas is taking a month off for his last stream or member video.
I wonder why.
Everyone can use a break, that's for sure. Especially social media. He's got a lot of tanks that he just put up now, so he's probably trying to get them all done, cycled, and then wants to relax before he has to do all the work for him. So, Living Dream Aquatics says, have you guys done a video, or do you know of a chart that will help with grading different Caridina shrimp, like different grades of pure redline? I'm asking for culling purposes.
All right, so before I answer this, I would like to announce that Lucas Bretz will be one of the judges for the shrimp contest in Daytona. One of the other judges will be Rob Bloomfield of Shrimp Envy. I might be a judge, or I have asked somebody else. They have not gotten back to me. If they don't say yes, I do have somebody else that I want to ask before I volunteer to be a judge. I have so much going on at this Aquashella that I kind of don't want to judge now. So I might be on the lookout for possible candidates for judges at this next show. But because Eric Lucas won't be there, and it's like the first one he's not going to. So, your question. I do not have a video, I believe, that goes over grading of any kind of Caridina. However, when it comes to grading, it is superly opinionated. One person might grade it completely different than another. There's also two ways to grade pure red lines. You can grade them by pattern, and you can grade them by actual quality of their overall shell color and stuff like that. So you can go on Google and search pure red line grading charts and just kind of look at all of them and get a grasp. And you can kind of feel out like, okay, these are high, medium, low. I don't really like to mess with the A, B, C, S, SS, SSSS plus grading system that a lot of the shrimp hobby uses. I like to just use high, medium, low grade, and then Coles and competition grade. Besides that, it's just like having way too many weight classes. It's just not needed. So basically, when working on and trying to cull, you want to cull the ones that don't look as vibrant white as the other ones. That's the best way to go about your culling. And then besides that, it's pattern. Pick out the pattern and the colors that you want.
Sorry.
Did you have something to disagree with that?
The fact that we've done a video where you talk about shrimp grading live stream.
I talk about it, but I don't talk about pure red lines.
Not specifically, but you do talk about Caridina and how.
Not specific Caridina is what I was trying to say.
Okay.
If I didn't relay that information,
Zoltan
my bad.
No, it's me probably. Zoltan said, "Will K2MA buffer the pH if it's capped with sand?"
I think that if you cap it with sand, you are basically taking away the buffering capability from working as effectively as you need to. So I'm not saying it's not going to eventually buffer the pH down. However, if you did a 30% water change, it might take a day or two to bring the pH back down from a neutral level. And that right there is enough to prevent certain babies from growing, molting, and stuff like that. Your baby survival rate will go down. You good?
Yeah. Stephen P. said valves have a decent chance of hanging in there. And Coro said valve scenario America is pretty good if you acclimate it slowly. And then Sam said hornwort worked for me, and Java Fern Philippines and Sulawesi.
Hornwort got shredded by the rabbit snails. So I'm thinking of something that can outgrow the rate of the rabbit snails eating it.
Yeah.
And I think that might happen with the jungle valve.
And we do have the Java Fern Philippines, and it's not growing that well in soft water. So maybe we should take some of it and put it in harder water and see if it'll grow faster.
Is that what you were looking at?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, it's that one right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. We only have one
all
tank.
Those crazy Java ferns I bought at AGA might work out after all, huh? I just bought like any Java fern I'd never heard of. When we went to AGA, I was like, I'm making this trip worth it one way or another.
And Gina came in and she's got some corals for us to pick out, and they're going to start getting some rubble together and start cycling the rubble too. So that's pretty cool. Thank you.
Very nice. We are going to start. We have Mo Devlin, who I consider to be one of the best photographers of aquarium fish in the United States. He's coming to speak for our club on Saturday. He's also coming to the house. He has offered to give us a little hand on our own camera and kind of teach us how to take better photos of the shrimp around the house, and maybe even invest a little bit on a new camera part and really take some really stunning photos. And then once he leaves, I would like to scape my own tank for the Keystone Clash. Shelby's going to scape her own tank. And then if we can and we have time, we're going to scape a tank together. And those will all be available at the Keystone Clash. And then Gina is going to do a saltwater aquarium tank. And then did you ask for the macro tank, or is this?
No, I have not asked for that yet. I don't know if she had macroalgae.
If we can put together a macroalgae tank, I would love that. Because if that didn't sell, I'm sure I can find a place for that at home for myself.
Mel said, "What's your take on no tech for raising maximum shrimp like LRB does?" We kind of went over that earlier. I don't know what time that was out though.
So I would definitely think about maximum shrimp breeding, as in like, what can I do to get the total growth rate and baby survival rate and everything like that. So I would do water changes and filters and keep the oxygen level as high as possible. And the only real way to do that the LRB way is to have a ton of plants to keep oxygen in the water. And when you have that many plants, the biofilm and everything's great, but it's really hard to see the ugly shrimp in the back. It's really hard to see if you ever have any dead shrimp or any issues in the back of the tank and stuff like that. So really, to get the oxygen levels as high as you want for the maximum amount of baby survival rate and everything like that, I recommend going our route. But if you want to know how to do the maximum shrimp breeding method the LRB way, I would ask him or watch one of his videos, because I've never set it up or tried it. All of our ponds, all of our tanks that have shrimp have filters. We do water changes on a schedule. We might not do as much water changes outside, but I do have plans on going through and making it to where we're dumping out a lot more water. Dane, if you're watching, we need to make that happen this winter for sure.
Welcome in, Chris. Says Curly Bell has lived 3 years in my Sulawesi tank, and I put rabbit snail in and Anubis.
See, Anubis did fine, but it seemed like the smaller, newer leaves that were growing up were getting eaten, and then once the old leaves just died off, we were left with like just a ribosome. So that was over several years where just like we had to take it out of that tank for it to regrow.
Yep. And then Sam says that the Philippines Java fern only grows in very hard water, so it's growing in the soft water.
But it's not soft. It's
so
technically hard-ish. So depending on who you ask, hard water is defined in a couple different ways. Technically, hard water should be where if you just throw water on the glass and as it evaporates and dries, if it leaves hard water stains, that's hard water, right? And at 170 total dissolved solids that our water comes out, there is some hard water stains. But the thing is, it's like you don't see it after the first layer. It's like after several layers of taking a shower that you might get a little buildup of hard water, but it's like not bad. There's other people that define it as 200 total dissolved solids or more. So by that definition, we don't have hard water. So it's like, what exactly is hard water? I like to think of soft water as low pH and hard water as high pH, but like that's not exactly right either, because I can have a high pH tank with really low TDS still. So it's I'm sorry, not comfortable. Had to move. It's one of those things where hard water is kind of hard to define.
Matt said, "Okay, Grant, time to cut it off. Poor Shelby needs rest."
No, 6 more minutes, Matt.
And then Scotty said, "I want Mo Devlin at the Clash in 2024." It's a really easy person to talk to, so really sweet. Like every time we need help or something, we ask him a question. There's a lot of people in the hobby that just don't want to help other people because they're afraid of competition. But he's been so sweet every time we've talked to him. So.
Yeah. So when we first got our camera, there was a lot of people that I asked for camera advice on what cameras I should get, and very few of them even responded. And then once I got our camera and I was asking people for advice, there was people who there's no way that they're using autofocus, and they're like, "Oh, I just use autofocus." Like that was the advice that they wanted to give me. And I was like, 100% you're not using autofocus, because I've watched you in person take photos and you're sitting there manually adjusting the focus. So Mo, not like that at all. 100%. He just wants the hobby to grow and improve. And if you're taking good photos, he wants to see it. And, he's not about it being this or this person. It's a and world with Mo, and he's a really great guy. And I'm hoping that we can really learn a lot this weekend. He'll be here for 4 days. 2 of the days though we'll be with him. He's got the talk, of course, on Saturday. He's going to come by the house and hopefully help us with a few tricks on our camera. We'll take him out the hot pot, and then the following day we're going to take him collecting. And he's also got a buddy. So what it's going to be is like 2 professional photographers are going to follow us around while we go collecting. And I'm really going to try and catch, like, we got the waders now. We're in there belly button deep trying to catch as many fish as we can possibly get. And I'm looking to find some nice ones that Mo can get some nice photos of. We're going to have Ryan, message Ryan, remind me to get more specimen containers, so that way we can get an assembly line with the kids. Specimen container, and then I can catch, be like Elasoma, Piggy Sun, same fish. Elasoma, bluefin killie, least killie, just raffling them off one after another so they can take as many photos as possible. So I'm excited for that.
Have a good night, vibes. So Brandon said, how much is the Hot Pot collecting VIP package?
If you guys came for Aquashella, and like the day after Aquashella, you wanted to drive 3.5 hours to the other coast or something like that, we can definitely arrange for something. You come tour and do Hot Pot, but I wouldn't charge you for it, Brandon. Your hospitality is on point.
Sorry, Lady Diane had the right answer here. 6 gallons of ice cream.
Oh, yeah, that is true.
It's so funny.
Yeah, Lady Diane, you're welcome. I'll take you to Hot Pot. I'll give you the tour. You paid your dues.
And Sam said Mo taught many great photographers, and says, Hot Pot, thanks again for that last week. It hits the spot. It really does. You almost fall asleep at the table because, like, by the time you get done eating so much, you want to fall asleep. You're done.
Well, also, Sam and Mark shows up around 7 o'clock. They said 6:30 to 7. 7 o'clock on the dot, all right? And then they've got all these fish that we need to take out of containers and then start to acclimate and get into tanks and figure out which ones they're going to take back and which ones we're going to leave in our aquariums and stuff like that. And then they want to wash up and get ready. And by the time we sit down at Hot Pot, it's like 8:45. By the time we leave Hot Pot, it's 10 o'clock. But yeah, they did not disappoint. If you didn't see the shiners that we caught, or I'm sorry, that they caught, and then I took photos of and posted on my Facebook, you're missing out. Besides rainbow shiners, they are the most beautiful shiners. And it's not the ones that I posted today. Those are metallic shiners that Sam and Mark also caught. No, I'm sorry. Mark caught with Ryan Kidley of My Wild Fish Tanks in Ocala today, or yesterday. The day before yesterday. Sorry.
Sam, big noodles.
Yeah.
Living Dream Aquatic says, "What's the most recommended camera?" So we don't know enough about cameras to actually recommend them.
I got it.
No,
the most recommended camera that everyone in the hobby, that everybody that I know would recommend, would be a phone, like a Samsung Galaxy S20 or higher, or an iPhone, I don't know, within the last 2 or 3 years. Either of those would be the most recommended cameras that you could possibly get. Without spending like an extra $2,000 to $3,000, you're not going to get much better than that. I'm sure there are some real good, Nikons or Canon camera kits that you can get at Sam's Club or Costco or something like that, and then buy a good lens for and stuff like that. But like, it takes some work, it takes some learning curves, and then on top of that, you might take 100 photos and get one that's just as good as one you took on your phone with 3 tries. So
like just like this right here, everyone always has their own, brand that they typically, just like iPhone to Samsung. Like, you're always gonna have the brand that you are able to use much easier, learn easier. Canon's always been really good. I know a lot of professional people, National Geographic use Canon, but you're going to have to research that. I don't know exactly which one. And like Lady Diane, Nikon, which is what we have.
And that's what Mo has, which is really convenient because Mo's going to let us try out a bunch of his extension lenses and his micro lenses and stuff like that. So we can test it out before we have to buy it. So.
Oh, yours is still broken. That sucks. But yeah, the Samsung Galaxy is pretty great. Most of them are pretty comparable between the iPhone and the Galaxy. You just got to find the most recent one. You can check on the specs of it, and it's usually pretty close.
I got to say this, though, because Mark has his iPhone. Whatever Mark does in low light on the iPhone comes out better than the Samsung. That's the only way. But if you have a well-lit situation, the Samsung takes better photos. Mark got some footage of the Mata eating the goldfish last night. Mm-hmm. There's no way that my phone would have picked up the colors in the tank the way his did. Cool. So that's the only advantage I will give the iPhone. Maybe Mark has a newer iPhone than I do my Galaxy, but I don't know. I don't know though. Yeah. So I think that's it, guys. Over the 2 minutes, Matt. I'm sorry, I'm slave driving Shelby like that.
$10,000 Canon lens. That's ridiculous. I love his pictures. So, oh my gosh!
You tell Mike to give us that and a waterproof camera case.
Yeah, just give.
And we'll walk through the Everglades and get them footage for the next show. And me and Mark will do it in nothing but barefoot.
Oh yeah, Mark's gonna want to do that.
And it will start the series. It's going to be barefoot hikers, and we're just hiking through the Everglades.
All right.
You ready to do it?
I'm ready. Yeah. I'm
for the TV series?
No. Oh, that would be awesome. That would be incredible. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to do that for sure. National Geographic was one of my biggest dreams growing up, to work for them. So, I mean, really just to hopefully cuddle some sea lions and pandas, because, they really want strange people cuddling them out of nowhere, but,
Well, that's it. Have a good night, everybody. We'll see you next week. Jaden's room is basically done. The video is going to take us some time to put together. Probably won't be done before next week, but within 2 weeks.
It might be.
Maybe.
Yeah. Thank you all for watching, and thank you for all the super chats and comments tonight. Appreciate every single one of them. Thank you.